Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this image. The subject in this image is highly reflective and very curvy. The techniques demonstrated in this video can be applied to any subject with similar attributes, allowing almost complete control over highlights and reflections. Okay, so let's have a look at what I've got set up so far. Here I have a white background roll and I've got a nice gentle curve on this, and I've put the subject in the center here, and I've actually put it on top of some sheet music here just to add a little bit further detail to the overall composition. Right, so the next thing I'm going to do is just place a tripod about here somewhere. Okay, so I'll just pop this about here somewhere, like that. And then I'm going to put my camera on the top. I'm using this digital SLR with a 24-70 zoom lens on the front of it. So I'm just going to pop this on the top of this tripod, like that. And we'll just frame up the shot. So I'll just point the camera downwards using the geared head, which I've got on here, so that we're actually looking at the subject somewhere around there. Let's see what the focus is like. Not bad. I think I want to zoom in a little, so I'm just going to take it in. Probably right to the 70mm end, I think, something like that. Maybe just turn that down a little more. Something like that, I think. Okay, so having framed up the shot, next thing to do, just turn the camera on, like so. And I'll just use the software just to grab an image with the available light and the present settings that I've got on the camera. Okay, so you can see from that there is quite a lot of available light in the image. I'm using a 1/50th of a second for the shutter speed with an aperture of 2.8 at 100 ISO. But these aren't the settings that I'll be using with flash illumination. So the first thing that I can do is change the shutter speed from 1/50th of a second to 1/250th of a second, which is the sync speed for that particular camera. And also 2.8 is far too narrow a depth of field. So I'm going to change that as well to a more reasonable, well, we'll start off at f8 and see how we go. So at these settings I'll grab another image and we'll see how much contamination we get now. Okay, so we're still getting some. One of the things about specular highlights is that the inverse square law doesn't really apply. It doesn't really matter how far away the subject lighting is, you will still get a specular highlight. So what we may need to do is turn out the house lights for the actual image capture. Okay, so the next thing to do would be to set up a light. Okay, so on this stand I have a Profoto B1X. This is a 500 joule unit, has modelling light built into it and so on, and rather importantly is also fully remotely controlled from the flash sync trigger. So in this instance I don't need to keep leaning over the top of the subject to adjust the light. So I'll just pop the sync trigger on the top of the camera. So I've just arbitrarily placed that at the moment, and there's no modifier on or anything else. So I'll just grab an image and we'll just see if we're in the right ballpark for exposure. And we can see from that some adjustment is definitely necessary. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just move the light a little so it's more over the top. So I'll just push that way, so. And we'll maybe just increase the energy by 1 stop. So I'll just take the energy up on that head, like that. We'll grab another image. Okay, so this time, possibly a little too much. I'm just going to take that stop off that I added, and we should be about there, I think. Grab that. Okay, so that gives us something to assess. Now, the first thing you can see about this is that you just end up with a mess of highlights, and also every little piece of dust is showing up, and all of the granular nature of the image is showing up. So this is definitely not the right way to light this sort of subject. But that aside, the other thing that I want to assess at the moment is the depth of field that I've got, which I don't think is actually enough, because the music sheet which I placed underneath the subject is too far out of focus. So the next thing I'm going to do is just adjust the aperture from f8 all the way up to f22. Now that will increase the depth of field, but also it will require 3 stops more energy to give the same illumination. So I'll just add 3 stops to that, like so, and we'll grab that again. There, that's better. You can see now that the background here is actually better focus. So this is what we had before, and this is what we've got now. So with those general things now addressed, it's time to look at lighting this properly. Now, at first thought, you might think it might be a good idea just to add a big softbox to this. So just to demonstrate what that will do, that's exactly what I'm going to do next. So there we are. I've added this 4-foot octabox to the light. So with that in place, not altering anything else, it's just the same energy as we had before, I'll just grab another image. Okay, so you can see from this that we've ended up with a very different image entirely. A lot of the granular nature has gone, not all of it, but quite a lot. And you can see that you're getting a reflection of the octabox in these curved items on the valves here, for instance. So it's starting to get there. This is what we had before. And this is what we've got with the octabox. But still, there's not that much control of the actual highlights and the general graduations that we're getting here. So we could try just making the octabox a little closer to the subject, which is going to make its reflections bigger. Okay, so let's just try that. I'll just drop this down so that it's more or less as close as I can get it without it actually touching the subject. So I think about there somewhere. Now obviously I've made this quite a bit closer. Therefore, due to the inverse square law, I'm going to have to modify the exposure. So I'm going to take off maybe 1 stop of energy. We'll try that to start with. Just grab another image. Okay, so that has made the reflections bigger, so it's filled in these bits, and the graduation down the sides of the curves is smaller than it was before. But overall, I don't think this is the correct solution. I think we need more control over the specular highlights, because in this image we don't really have any. We've got lots of highlights, but no specular highlights. So what can we do about that? Well, the first thing to do would be to ditch the softbox. There we go. So with the softbox out of the way, what I can do now is put a diffusion sheet in here somewhere. And that will allow me to control the specular highlights that I will get from this flash head with no modifier on it. So here we are. This is the diffuser that I'm just putting in position. And we'll just put that roughly about there for now. And the idea of this is that it will diffuse the light from the head, and as I change the distance between the head and the diffuser, it will change the quality of the highlights in the subject. Let's grab an image and show you what I mean. So again, just with the same settings, grab an image. Now this time you can see the specular nature of the light in these reflections here, and also the graduation that we've got down the side of all the curves in the metalwork. So there's a few things to do to this to fine-tune it, and the first of which is to just position this diffuser quite a lot closer to the subject. So I'm just going to lower this just about as low as I can get. Let's take that down like that. There we are, and I think I'll just take it, there we are, just a bit further forwards, like that. So with this in this new position, I'll just grab another image. There, and that's starting to fill in all these reflections. This is what we had before. You can see the dark parts around here, and this is what we've got now. These are much fuller. Overall, the whole exposure, I think, needs to be changed. It needs possibly half a stop more. So I'll add half a stop of energy just to that light, like that. We'll just grab that again. There, that's better. So that's very nearly there. But I'd like to just see what a different position for this light will be. And one of the ways that you can do that is just by using the modelling light, which is built into the unit. So if I just turn that modelling light on, like so, and then I'll have to turn the house lights out to see the effect. So with the house lights out, what I can do is just move this light backwards and forwards. You can see the image change from the camera's point of view. So fairly small changes in the position of the light makes quite a large difference to the way the image looks. So if I just drop down this light ever so slightly, like so, maybe just bring that back a little to about there. Looks like a reasonable place. Okay. There, so with that new position, I can just grab an image and we'll see what it looks like. Yes, so we can see that in this image we've optimized where the highlight appears in the reflection. So these are now in a much better place as far as I can tell, and also we're getting a nice running highlight on these tubes. And generally the level of detail is pretty good. But we've lost all of the confusion in the image caused by having a bare studio flash. So if I go back to the one that we took just with the light on its own, you can see in this that there are lots and lots of highlights caused by the general state of the tubes, any dirt, dust, etc. And all that has been rendered invisible by using careful lighting. So with that now set, I just think we need a slight more energy coming out of the system. So I'm just going to add another half stop to that. and we'll just grab that image. There, I think that's doing very well. So this is what we had before. It was just down ever so slightly, and this is what we've got now. Now obviously all that was done with the house lights out, which has stopped those extra reflections. So just to show what would happen with the house lights on, I'll just turn them on again and we'll grab one last image. Okay, so with the house lights on, let's grab that as well. So with the house lights on, you can see that we've got an extra reflection just round here and a few other places. If I just flip backwards and forwards, you should be able to see the difference. There we go. It's not a lot, but it's something to bear in mind. Okay, so with that now captured, it just remains to go into Photoshop and do the post-production. So just having a global look around the image, I think the first thing that I want to do is just do a general adjustment to the levels, just to fine tune it a bit. So I'll just go to Image, come down to Adjustments, come across to Levels, and just open up the Levels dialog box, which we've got here. And what I'm going to do is just change this center slider, which just changes the contrast within the image. So I'm just going to make it a little more punchy. So something like that. I might just raise generally the white level. Reasonable. You can always just preview that just with the button here. So that's what we had before, and that's what I've got now. So I think that's worked quite well. Okay. And the other thing that I'd like to do is just maybe increase the color content slightly. So I'm just going to again go to Image, Adjustments. This time I'm going to come down to Hue and Saturation. And I'm not going to change the hue at all, but I am going to change the saturation just a little bit. So I'll just increase that. Just punch that through. So this is what we've got now, that's what we had before. So it just adds a little more colour to it. Okay, so the other thing that I just want to do to this image is I always think that if you have any text appearing, it can throw off the composition slightly. So what I want to do is just get rid of the text, which is just in here. So what I'm going to do first is just make a copy, a duplicate there, like so. And then I'll work on this layer and it'll leave this other one alone. Okay, so if I just zoom in, this is the text that I want to get rid of. And I think just a general clone will do this. So I'll select the clone stamp, just set the size of the brush, I'll make it a little harder, maybe a little smaller as well, just so I can control it a bit more. There we go. Now using the Alt key on the keyboard, just going to bring it down to the edge here, like so. We'll just click on that. And now if I move that down to there, I can just clone out the first part of that, like so. And now exactly the same on the other side. Just pop that out as well. Right, so with that bit now done, I can show you the before and after. That was the before, and that's the after. So I'll just zoom back out again. There we are. I think that's improved it quite a lot. So, just pick a crop finally, and as usual I'm going to go for 16:9. I'm actually going to bring the whole thing down a bit, so just to about there somewhere I think. Yeah, that looks alright. So I'll just click on OK. And there we have it. So that just shows what you can do with lighting to control the highlights in your subject and the reflections as well. And by picking the correct lighting tools, you can really bring out the best in your subject. And I think overall that has worked quite well. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed seeing how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.